From KOAT Action 7 News, this is breaking news.
In that breaking news, the governor is giving an update on wildfires burning around the state right now from the Emergency Operations Center in Santa Fe. Let's take a listen.
Much of that update and information as possible. We do shift changes on these fires first thing in the morning. They accumulate all of the information and data. They provide it directly in those incident command briefings in communities like in Las Vegas, Taos, in Jemez Springs, as examples, so that we're all getting the firefighting information that we need to keep people safe. So I want to just apologize to the media and to our viewers who are waiting. I want to make some introductions. One introduction may have confused folks, but we were trying to make sure that the Adjutant General, who is the Adjutant General, General Aguilar, was appointed, and we've been working on getting that information out. The official announcement from the Office of the Governor is on its way, but congratulations, General Aguilar. As you know, he's been in a position of incredible leadership for the National Guard and is no stranger to assisting us in both protecting New Mexicans, the country, but also responding to these kinds of emergencies, whatever they are. And many of you, I think, also know that it was the National Guard who, with the support of the men and women who work at the Behavioral Health Institute campus and are running all of those Department of Health programs, but we're largely responsible for getting every one of those patients and residents out safely Monday morning at 2 a.m. And as you know, the National Guard is doing active firefighting, particularly on the Cerro Pelado fire, where they can take the helicopter and firefighting buckets. I'm sure I didn't identify that machinery exactly right, General, but if we've got questions, he's here. Laura McCarthy, who's the state forester, is in every community and actively engaging in two aspects. One, her role is to make sure that any of the resources from the state forestry are available, that we're coordinating with U.S. Forest Service and, quite frankly, the U.S. Parks Service as well, who are embedded and responsible for any number of public properties in the state. But also, she's going to be in a lead position to do all of the cleanup and work and to reassess current policies related to getting our forests healthier in the context of these extreme droughts. So thank you for being here. I've introduced you to Mr. Alarcon, who's the Deputy Chief of Staff. He is primarily assigned to manage all of the state resources and to execute the plans that are identified by any number of experts. And today, we are proud to introduce our FEMA coordinator. This is Sandy Esslinger. She is not a stranger to New Mexico, and having her at the table with us today is really about this declaration for disaster relief by the president and making sure now we're providing New Mexicans with as many federal resources coupled with as many state resources attached to as many local resources, and then really assessing where we're going to have gaps, because we will. None of these programs perfectly wrap around any single victim's issues on any of these. And what Sandy was explaining to me, Ms. Esslinger, I should be a little more formal, is that FEMA really is very accustomed to getting you back into a property that's been damaged by flood. Wildfires are a completely different animal in the context of the destruction for people's properties and livestock. So that's going to be something that we're going to be leaning into. I want to give a quick update on the fires, and we're going to go right to the assistance. As of this morning, which this is also, I think, qualifying it as good news is tough for me. Having no fires is good news. Having non-flooding monsoons would be good news. but we are stable in the context of current active fires. I think that's the right word. We have 6 active fires. That's where we were when I last was here at the Emergency Operations Center. They're burning in 5 New Mexico counties. The most significant fire, the complex fire, the Calf Canyon and Hermit's Peak fire, is the largest wildfire, and it was last week and the week before, burning in the country, and it continues to be certainly a priority. Not that we don't have firefighters addressing all of these fires adequately, but it is posing the most risk. It has currently burned 168,000 acres in Mora and San Miguel counties, and it stays at about 20% contained. There are currently more than 1,300 firefighters working on just that fire. Fire has prompted the evacuation of nearly 16,000 homes. That means that we have more than 16,000 people affected by the number of evacuations, right? So we have households that are 2 to 7 and 8 and 9 people. Just make sure that New Mexicans understand that we have thousands of New Mexicans who were affected by this fire. We know that at least 170 homes are confirmed to have been destroyed. We also continue to keep a close eye on the Cerro Pelado fire, which has burned 32,000 acres and is 13% contained. There are currently more than, so you can see increases, which we do strategically so that it's meaningful work at protecting New Mexicans and managing the fires. There are now 800 firefighters working on the Cerro Pelado fire. The Cook's Peak fire has burned 32,000 acres and is 97% contained. What's important about this is it means that in that area in the north and San Miguel and Mora, in fact, frankly, Colfax, Taos, all the counties in that wilderness area, in those mountain areas where the Rockies start, it gives us the ability to have additional resources and additional eyes on the most complex fire in the United States. So while we have real damage in the Cook's Peak fire and real work to do, we're able to really focus on this Title I incredibly dangerous extreme risk fire that continues to rage at Hermit's Peak. Now, the most important news about the fire is twofold, and I mentioned it yesterday. The fire containment strategies, keeping this fire from moving into communities and jumping over the fire containment lines and barriers, which is a very important aspect of firefighting for wildfires. When you have a huge raging fire, it's not like putting out a structure fire where you can get all the way around it and attack it. This fire is moving, and it's moving some areas a mile a minute. It's moving quickly. So you look at containing it and getting it to move back on itself where there's limited fuel because the fire's already burned up that fuel in the forest. So for the last several days, all of those lines have held. All of those containment strategies and structure preparation, which is wetting the area down, having hose, tons of that available so that we're doing also the proactive work. That's all been incredible. Today, it looks like, and the reports are improving about the weather. Yesterday I reported that today is a red flag day. I believe it's still under that warning, which is an extreme fire risk, fire wind day. More importantly, we believe that with the national storm coming, that all New Mexico gets from that, including the weather that's created by this fire, is 100 straight hours starting at about 11 a.m. And again, this information shifts because when it occurs, we can update it because we have actual data. It's not projected data. But the projected data is about 11 tomorrow for 100 straight hours. We have high temperatures, and extreme wind. This is the worst possible set of conditions for any fire. I repeat, it's the worst possible set of conditions for this fire. We have all the right personnel. If you're in a mandatory evacuation area, please leave. The issue here is those exit routes aren't as secure and as safe as they were when we put mandatory evacuation orders that are called by the experts in local communities. So there are risks, and certainly we can assist you. You can call, and I'll talk about that 1-800 number. You can talk to anyone at a shelter. You can talk to your incident command managers. You can talk to the sheriff. Anyone, if the local police, the guard, anyone in the community can help you, but we can't promise that there aren't real dangers in leaving. But 100 hours of wind and extreme temperatures is extremely concerning, and I need as many people out of those evacuated areas as possible, safely. And if you choose to stay, please be careful. I mean, I don't even know what else to say. There's just no way that we can get in and protect you in the way that we want to. We can't. So I just want folks to really heed those experts in your communities. We won't know how well we do until we know how well we do. I know that folks want me to give you unequivocally that the fire lines will hold, that it's not going to jump, that we're not going to lose a single person or a single structure. That's what I want. My expectation is that everyone has everything they need to get as close to that or meet those expectations. But we won't know until we know. With so much smoke moving, as the state forester reminded me in our briefing this morning, that the infrared can't capture when we have a spot that moved, that jumped. So you get sparked someplace else, we have fire moving, and we can't be on it in the same way because even the infrared cameras don't pick it up. That is a critical firefighting aspect in this situation. So I just want everyone in the state to understand where we are, and I want you to continue supporting and praying for your neighbors and for every New Mexican who's been impacted and affected by this fire. And I failed to mention that when we say extreme wind, it's up to 70 miles and potentially beyond miles per hour. These gusts. This is they are referring to it, and then I'll move on, as historic fire weather event. Again, I read that in exactly the way that it has been briefed and described to me, so that New Mexicans understand what we're dealing with and understand that this is a critical phase of this fire. And again, it means extreme risk. I trust the men and women on the ground. I do. I trust the fire and federal resources on the ground, but I recognize that we have a serious situation. I already said, if you're under a mandatory evacuation order and you're still there, this is the time to maybe reevaluate whether or not you can keep yourself safe in this situation. Now, we talked earlier this week, I'm going to move to the stuff that I think people really want to know about. President Biden approved our request to declare a disaster in the state in the way that doesn't attack the fire, but now focuses on the men and women and families who have been negatively impacted and victimized by this fire. Everything from losing your property, which is horrific, to not being able to go to work, to families not being able to be in school. All of the things that we need to support New Mexicans is unlocked by virtue of this disaster declaration. Now, having the coordinating officer, the federal coordinating officer from FEMA, Ms. Esslinger, she will lead all of those federal recovery efforts. She arrived yesterday. She arrived back to New Mexico yesterday. And she's building her team on the ground right now. There are two parts to this team that she can describe in more detail if there's a question. Two parts. First are 28 individuals that are in teams of 7, so you have 4. 2 are here already, 2 more are coming. And these are the disaster assistance personnel. All right, they come into your communities. The first 2 will be directed to Ruidoso and Glorieta, so really focused on the Mora San Miguel and the Lincoln County aspects of the damage that's already occurred. What do? Registrations. The most important recovery information received today is you have to register. None of this is available from the federal effort unless you get registered. www.disasterassistance.gov. www.disasterassistance.gov. You must get registered. We heard yesterday that there were some issues about that. Our coordinating officer is going to help us get those resolved and having people to help you get registered. They have their iPods. They are ready to go. We're in areas where we have coverage so that people have a person available to assist them with that registration. It is critical. The second aspect is to have actual recovery centers on the ground. That's a more structural aspect where actual relief and benefits can be available and the navigation of those is available. The 28 people, the 4 teams of 7, registration. The recovery centers is where those benefits come. Individual assistance, which, as I understand it, can be for some up to $500. That's more immediate relief. That is not available today or tomorrow, but could come as early as next week, can be directly deposited in your accounts with other options available. We need to talk about that. I need people to get registered right now to make sure that that process is as smooth as possible, and recognizing that the international community can be challenging in this regard. So get registered, make sure that we're on this correctly. Let's get people the assistance that they need. I also want to point out, and then I'm ready for questions, that this will be bumpy. I talk to people about that every day, and I have complete respect, and I've got gratitude for FEMA. We can't do this without them, and the state can't lean in to close gaps, to get people, as I've committed to moving heaven and earth to get you as whole as possible, and not even understanding what that will look like until I know what the damage is. And I know what insurance is available, and I know what FEMA is going to do. Until we put all of that together, there are a lot of unanswered questions, and I want New Mexicans to understand that, because if I could just fix it and make it easy when you have all these different relief programs and partners, I would. But our job is to be compassionate, effective, kind, and to figure it out, no matter how challenging the issue is. All right? So we're going to use federal resources, state resources, local resources, private sector resources, and we're going to do everything in our power, including we're looking at, and I feel pretty confident we'll be able to deliver, getting a number of manufactured housing units available and placed in safe areas for people to get more long-term, short-term, it's not your house, but right out of hotels and out of shelters into more meaningful living arrangements. So we're all working around that. There may be a federal component to that. It may be, and then a state partnership, maybe just a state component. We're working through that. The state also has to request every categorical benefit. So anybody not in this room is in an office over there requesting every categorical benefit. So in most states, they tell you we're going to focus on the top 5. I want all of it. I don't know how much the state will be eligible from the feds, but we're going to ask if there's a benefit, I want it made available. Whatever that is, shelter, housings, livestock fencing, pets, utility assistance, unemployment assistance, which we already have available. Now that the declaration is signed, like any emergency, you're displaced from work, we have unemployment benefits available for you. All right, so all of that is happening. Last thing, the state will also put up our assistance vehicles, vans, and we're already in the shelters, but we're going to advance and enhance that. Particularly, we're going to try to find a way, assuming we can maintain cell service with folks who have chosen to stay in evacuated areas, as you have read and are aware, with thousands of people who made that decision, it is very difficult to answer their questions and to stay in touch with them. And we're trying. I think that is something we should work to do, even though those independent decisions limit or eliminate to a large degree our ability to help you. Right? No one's walking away, but it is very challenging. And we are also trying to identify, and then I'm done, if you are in a hotel, and I'll give you our toll-free number again, and we'll have a FEMA number as well. We'd love to know where you are. And the reason is that with early vouchers given by Help New Mexico, and it's gone. And people on fixed incomes are finding themselves not being able to pay the next hotel bill. I can't commit that every hotel bill in every situation is readily available for coverage, but we have committed to figuring out every avenue to do our very best, including using the Altogether New Mexico Fund, which has seen tens of thousands of additional dollars donated. There's a board meeting right now to assure that we have more flexibility to meet those needs of any number of New Mexicans who heeded those evacuation requirements and went into any available hotel they could. So we want to know where you are or how we can help you. I guess where you are, maybe how we can help you. We just want you to call us, how can we help? And we're putting those packages together in real time. I do want to reiterate that this partnership is early and is amazing. And New Mexicans deserve this support. As you know, I've been visiting most of the communities. I was not in Lincoln County the last couple of days. The cabinet, the entire cabinet was. But I have been in Jemez Springs, Espanola, Taos, Penasco, and Las Vegas, and Glorieta. I will continue to do that over the weekend because I get a real sense about what people's issues are, what their continued hardships are, and how we might assist them, particularly in the recovery efforts in their backyard, these forests. This is also their livelihoods, these forests. So I will continue to do that. Most of the volunteers in these shelters are men and women who have been evacuated, and many families who have already lost everything. And they are showing up every day if they're not staying at the shelter. And they are cooking meals, and they are sorting supplies, and they're providing care, compassion, and comfort. And it is the best of all of us, and it is amazing. And I thank these families for their incredible support. And the men and women on the fire, thank you. They're doing incredible work, and they continue to save lives and pets and livestock. Many people are asking us to do as much as we can for their pets, which are their family members, and we are. With that, we are available for questions. This is an incredible team, and I thank you for your patience for that update.
Governor, we understand that the state has worked incredibly well with Glorieta in order to support some of these evacuees, but we also know that Glorieta is going to be handling their own program starting in June, and that those evacuees might not have that space. Do we have any plans in the future to provide those evacuees with other options once that comes?
Absolutely, which is one of the reasons I talked about that manufactured housing, but we also have stood up properties. They're not going to be like Glorieta. Glorieta is a pretty special place and really is accommodating for this kind of an emergency. But Santa Rosa, the mayor and the local elected leaders there have not only identified hotel, shelter space, but also sort of long-term care support space for individuals who may have medical issues, needs long-term care support. So primarily, but not exclusively, disabled and elderly populations. Tucum carry the same. Taos is looking for more resources. Espanola, which is why I was there, they're readying and preparing. It will take the whole state to think about ways to support 16,000 households, which could translate, and we don't know the exact number, to 20, 25, 30,000 or more individuals who are going to need some kind of assistance. Many of the individuals there are students from the World College and students also from Highland. So that gives us a little reprieve because they will be going on to their next area of study and leaving the state. So that gives us some relief in that regard, but it is a very important question. So we think we're ready. None of these can replace someone's home, but we want to make sure people have secure, safe, appropriate housing for their children, themselves, and their pets. Yes?
So we've received some reports from people who have applied for FEMA assistance, and they said that they weren't able to take part in the benefits because they were already insured. So could we provide some clarification on who qualifies for these benefits, who does not, and what benefits are available for those who may not qualify?
Good question. I'm going to go right to our FEMA coordinator, and that is an issue, which is why I keep mentioning local and state benefits, and the more people who register, the more information we have so we know what gaps we need to try to assist and fill.
Certainly. So just to give you a quick overview, this individual assistance program is really tailored toward the individual's issues, right? It's going to be based on a case-by-case basis. But overall, the program, as defined by law, it does not actually allow us to duplicate benefits, which includes the insurance benefit. So if people have insurance, one of my first messages is if you've got insurance, please go ahead and submit your insurance claim. It doesn't necessarily mean you're not qualified for any FEMA assistance. It just means as you're going through the registration process and they say, and you answer the question that you have insurance, getting that insurance, what specific information about your insurance policy uploaded, then identifies is there an insurance gap, or it may also lead you to some other additional program related questions. So I think if I could say the most important thing, again, that the governor mentioned this, the most important thing is to get registered. Secondly, to understand that we just turned the programs on for this disaster yesterday, and they're going through a script, right? They're going through a process, asking questions, and they're going to say things like, your case is going to be put on hold, or you might even hear the word ineligible. But that is because there's going to be another step required on the individual's part. That means you've got to upload your insurance information so then we can see what the difference is. So if I had one word of advice for all of the people who are registering and going through that process is don't give up. The reason that we're putting people out there on the ground is to actually help people get registered if they're having problems with the process. The reason we're looking at forming these disaster recovery centers is because we're going to have experts in the field that you can go talk to about your case. It's really important that you get your case assigned. And the way you do that is through registering. And then we're going to continue through the process. As the governor mentioned, they're requesting additional things be added in terms of the state's eligibility for these programs. So if you get your case number, you're also going to be registered to get information on your telephone or otherwise about when new programs become available. So again, very important to register, very important to understand that is not necessarily the end of your process. It's the beginning.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Did somebody before me?
So, Governor, with the schools, some have been canceled, some classes have been canceled. what are we going to be doing in the future, you know, with school kind of wrapping up? Are we going to go back to the Zoom, and people that do need computers, what we're going to do there?
So in places where we have mandatory evacuations, that also means that educators are displaced and school children are displaced from the normal school operations. Three things. One, children can go anywhere to school, and so all of the other school districts. So for example, in San Miguel and in Taos County, if people have moved, those kids can go into those classrooms. And they are all working, and the superintendents had a meeting yesterday, making sure that that process is smooth. Two, for students and educators that want to go to the same online learning platform, that's certainly not discouraged, but for many parents who've had a long couple of years dealing with COVID and school challenges, I'm finding that most parents want an in-classroom. So we've also looked at where we've got displaced educators already and displaced students. So for example, in Las Vegas, identifying satellite education locations. And I believe there's at least one, and I can get more details to you about that in Las Vegas. For parents who are homeschooling, that's hard to do in a shelter, and they've asked us to think about ways to support that effort a little more robustly. I will tell you that I did meet with the Penasco superintendent while I was in Penasco, and an educator there who raised some significant concerns just about trauma to everyone evacuated, including educators and students and parents. And even when you say to a parent, we're going to go to online learning, for the parents that didn't work well for, that isn't met with the kind of, robust, that's a great alternative situation. So we are working with Penasco and Mora in particular to make sure that we think about every hybrid, including looking at school for extended learning, which is already a program that's available in the state, and getting them more substitute teachers. And remember, we have a return to work. So if we've got educators who are trying to manage FEMA, no offense to the coordinator who's amazing, or the state, we're going to help you. But if those educators can't be in a classroom in the summer, there are other educators who are coming to the aid. So that's the kind of three-part effort for education.
Yeah, thank you. 2 points to the FEMA stuff. Even pre-fires, not everybody has a computer. And with the fires, including those who decided to stay behind, they don't have computers. So there's going to be some sort of a challenge. How do you get around that for trying to apply to FEMA? That's my first question, then I have a second one.
Okay, so I can help with that. So in addition to the website, we have a telephone number. So if people have telephone access, this is another way to actually get assistance. And I'm going to read it because I want to make sure I get it right. It's 1-800-621-3362. And that will get you a way to begin the registration process as well. Now, I did understand from some feedback that we got yesterday that the folks who were using the telephone number, sometimes you're going to be put on hold because we're just opening this up. There's going to be a lot of folks trying to get registered this way. So again, that's another option. What I will say is us getting people on the ground is really intended to also assist. Typically, the folks that we're putting out there in the small teams now, we're going to be growing those. We just wanted to get people here as quickly as possible, and again, we've got to find places for them to stay. We do not want to compete with the survivors who have been displaced. So we're trying to work that in, but we're going to have folks in the communities actually continuing to assist with the registration. The registration period will be open for a certain period of time, so they shouldn't be too worried about that. But to get those folks registered, those initial folks that are going to be out there working in support of the centers, right, where we have the evacuation centers where people are located, and also getting those disaster assistance centers up and running as well. And people will be able to go there and personally get assistance with those registration processes.
And you can do it at the shelters, and we're going to make sure that there's personnel, libraries, community centers. We're even looking at a brand new food distribution. That was a complaint that I got earlier at a couple of the shelters, that For folks who are not at a shelter, and for folks who are not at a hotel, not that being in a hotel creates food security, because it doesn't. But if you are living with extended family members, and that family went from a household of 2 to a household of 8, what do we do for food support for those families? Well, we have a lot of food donations coming in and opportunities to also pay for food. So we are going to increase the distribution. So you can take, there's no limit, but I mean, the way we package it, 1 or 2 or 3 days worth of food and supplies, come back. We're having any number of the food pantries and other folks assist us so that large quantities, we start at Glorieta, we distribute it out. We'll figure that out also for Lincoln County, but we'd like a more no wrong door wherever you are is an opportunity to get your issue addressed. State workers in our unemployment and our state benefit support can also assist with their own IT access and equipment to make sure that you have the ability to go online or to use telephones. So I have no doubt that we will find someone who's really worked up about not getting to us. And my commitment to New Mexico is we'll figure it out. But we're trying to make it as easy for you as possible because we know how hard this is.
Can I have a follow-up?
All right, so you were just listening to the governor give a briefing on these wildfires. So the biggest thing here, we want you to get like a pen or a paper or your phone, jot this down. This is disasterassistance.gov. That's the website where you're going to need to register as soon as possible for any relief, any funding that you may need to help you get back on your feet after these wildfires. And for anyone who doesn't have a computer or internet access, there's a phone number as well. I'm going to read it for you here. It's 1-800-621-3362. They're also trying to figure out how to make sure there are representatives at shelters for people who need to register in person. We do have that phone number on your screen for you. Again, the website is disasterassistance.gov. You need to register as soon as possible to help get this FEMA assistance for you. Now, the governor also acknowledging that not everyone will qualify for this FEMA assistance. So there is going to be federal funding, state funding, and local resources. Right now, they are trying to figure out plans to see how all of this money can be distributed to people who need this, impacted by all of these fires burning across the state. A big thing that they talked about here also is students that have been displaced by the fires, also educators, saying that they're meeting with superintendents on how best to support all of these students who still very much need to continue their education throughout all of this, looking at perhaps hybrid programs, also figuring out how to support educators who are displaced. They also said if you're in a hotel, they want to know where you are to make sure that you can qualify for vouchers on getting that funding to put you up in housing there. They're also considering manufactured housing. They're saying that they are trying to put this in place as soon as possible for people who perhaps can't stay in those hotels or any evacuation centers that need to close by a certain date. They are looking at manufactured housing to put people impacted by these wildfires in this manufactured housing so they of course can have a roof over their head. And now as for the fires that are burning right now, the biggest fire in not just New Mexico but in the country is still the Calf Canyon Hermit's Peak fire. Unfortunately, it seems like the numbers right now are still pretty much the same that we saw yesterday, so 168,000 acres, 20% contained. We know 16,000 homes have been evacuated, so that means more than 16,000 people are out of their homes. 170 homes haven't been confirmed to be destroyed. At least 1,200 firefighters are still fighting these fires. Again, we have 6 fires burning in 5 New Mexico counties. You can see a map of them right there on your screen. Again, Calf Canyon Hermit's Peak is still the largest. We're going to have the latest on the containments as we get closer to this, what they're calling a historic fire weather event this weekend. Make sure you join us at 4, and for the latest on evacuations, head to KOAT.com or open your KOAT app. Be safe.